Welcome to Optima Molliter. First of all, I would like to thank Harry Schmidt and Rare Care for this meeting, and Dr. Montini for the presentation that he will share with us, and all of you, our attendees. Thank you very much for joining us. Let me please very quickly introduce our Optima Molliter, our factory. The company is based in Civitavecchia Marche, in the center of Italy, the footwear region, and it was created on 1894 by Loredano Salvatelli Senior, and it hands down from fathers to sons. In fact, in 1956, we have the transformation in footwear factory, in 1962 in industry. But in 2001, the new generation of brothers Salvatelli, Susanna, who is now our CEO, Franco and Alberto, started to create a new line of medical devices and shoes in order to respond to the problem of the fragilities and risks of diabetic foot. In this year, they met Professor Piaggesi, who is one of the most important doctors in the field of diabetic foot in the world, and the president of the EUMA, the European Wound Management Association. They asked him to test the device Diab before launching it into the market. Dr. Piaggesi accepted, but told them that he will publish every results if even they were negative. These guys accepted the challenge, and Professor Piaggesi made 2 trials, randomized controlled trials, that were published in Diabetes Care in 2007 and Foot and Ankle International in 2016. He compared the total cast that was the gold standard to the Diab device. And the results were that they are equal for the time of healing, but the Diab is much more superior for the compliance of the patients and for the cost, because it costs 8 times less than total contact cast. We are now in the international guidelines that were issued last year in The Hague by the International Working Group on Diabetic Foot, and our 2 publications are named 18 times, and we are very proud of that. In 2013, we created the first Lego device, SBI. It is a device with no stitching and no glue. In this year, we have also the idea and the invention of the first sensorized device to monitor the compliance of the patient to the therapy, and it was born the Motus Smart. Motus Smart, patented by Optima Molliter, have been awarded in 2019 at ICCS in Las Vegas for the wearable technologies. Optima Molliter also created an algorithm that Dr. Armstrong named as a lingua franca. It visually explains the guidelines for prevention, acute phase, and remission in order to help the professional healthcare to give to their patients the correct device and or shoes. Now, Optima Molliter is in 2,700 shops in Italy and in 47 active distributions all around the world. This is our history. We now make research, clinical and scientific research in collaboration with Italian and foreign university, and training all around the world. Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to Dr. Montini, who is orthotist and podiatrist professor at University in Milano.
Okay, Good morning to all of you, Anzi. Good evening for you, because it's morning also in Italy, not in Australia. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes,
Juliana?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So thank you very much for all of you to join us in our webinar. Today I'm going to talk about a modern and effective approach to offload the diabetic foot. And my start point is the diabetic foot offloading algorithm. Because it's a guide. It's a guide for every healthcare professional moving through diabetic foot offloading strategies in every different pathway: prevention, acute phase, and remission. And because I guess a circle of care, a continuum of care from prevention through acute phase and remission. And when we talk about diabetic foot offloading strategies, in my opinion, it's really important to answer a question that's on everyone's mind. Why is there a close correlation between feet and diabetes? In order to answer this question, it's important, it's crucial to remind the general principles of the gait cycle. Our central nervous system integrates the information from internal and external receptor in order to generate a motor response, thanks to an efficient function of neuromuscular skeletal system. And we called this motor response walking. And when we walk, we progress through a series of repetitive events. Each of them is aimed to an effective management of biomechanical risk factor. And what are they? The biomechanical risk factors are ground reactive forces, incorrectly fitted footwear, underlying biomechanical pathology, body mass and weight, fitness level, and state of health. But the most important of them is the ground reactive forces, because walking is a continuous exchange of energy between our body and the ground. But too often we forget that our body is made for natural surfaces, not artificial ones. The latter were made with hygiene in mind rather than how good they were for walking on. And this is crucial because on artificial surfaces, the ground reactive forces are dramatically increased. And these forces pass through our feet up to the lower extremity, causing a very serious disturbance of musculoskeletal system. Incorrectly fitted footwear is a biomechanical risk factor because according to this meta-analysis, almost 6 out of 10 people are wearing the wrong shoes in terms of width or length. And in a specific group, such as elderly people or diabetic patient, is more likely to be 8 out of 10 people. And this issue is strongly correlated with foot pain, foot disorders, and foot deformity. So put this foot into this shoe is the best way to enhance biomechanical risk factor. And the cost that the patient have to pay is a foot deformities, and in this case is a foot callus. Underlying biomechanical pathologies surely is a biomechanical risk factor because genu varo, genu valgum, limb length discrepancies represent a biomechanical risk factor because change the ground reaction forces. So what is really clear is that the combination of biomechanical pathology, artificial surfaces influence, and incorrectly fitted footwear may lead to foot deformities. And the most common foot deformities are hallux valgus, hammer toes, claw toes. And if you have paid attention, I haven't pronounced diabetes or diabetic foot, because this is the biomechanical context that is in common for every human being. So now we have a new question. Why is the foot the first location for comorbidities in diabetes? Before we have to know what is diabetes. Diabetes is the main lifestyle-related disease in nowadays, according to this data produced by International Diabetes Federation in 2017, more than 400 million people were living with diabetes. And by 2045, it will raise to more than 700 million of people. and 50% of them were undiagnosed, and 79% of them were living in low and middle income countries. And we know that diabetes causes two different consequences: peripheral arterial disease and peripheral neuropathy. So the answer to this question is that peripheral arterial disease and the loss of protective sensation increase the exposure to biomechanical risk factor. And the consequences are viewable in this video. The patient walks slower with increase in double lean time support, increase the base of gait. Due to peripheral neuropathy, decrease the muscle strength and the joint range mobility. And as a consequence, we have an impaired function of soft tissue. And the most important soft tissue in our body is the skin. So we are facing off to diabetic foot ulcer. And although it's the tip of the iceberg in diabetic foot ulcer, even now is the event via which most of our people find out they have diabetes. And is a global emergency. You have to think that in 2014 in the United States, the healthcare system has spent more for lower limb complication after secondary to diabetes than to the breast cancer. So it's really, really a pandemic. It's not the right period to talk about pandemic because we are in COVID period, but surely is the main lifestyle related disease in nowadays. And the prevalence of active foot ulceration varies from 1% in certain countries in North America and Europe to moreover than 11% in certain African countries. So especially in Australia, even now is a big issue because every day there are 12 people are undergoing a diabetes-related amputation, and 50,000 of people are living now every day in Australia with diabetes. So it's a pressing issue also in Australia, diabetic foot disease. So now we come back to the diabetic foot offloading algorithm, because in diabetic foot offloading strategies, we have three different pathways: prevention, acute phase, and remission. Prevention, speaking about prevention, it's not easy. It's not easy because there isn't a specific evidence that indicates that a specific shoe can prevent a primary lesion. What we know, thanks to the international consensus, the international guidelines, is that for diabetic patients, it's advisable not to walk barefoot or in socks or in slipper socks, but rather is suggested to use a correct shoes. And if there is a foot deformity, it's advisable to use a foot orthotic. But what I mean correct shoes? Above all means that the shoe must fit properly, and the shoe have to have specific technical features. So the therapeutic shoes has heel counter in order to contain the rotation of the lower leg to the foot. We have extra depth and wide toe box in order to contain the foot, eventually foot deformities. But moreover, the specific features of therapeutic shoes is the combination of rocker sole and controlled rolling point. Because the therapeutic shoes has the proximally relocation of a forefoot rolling point in order to relieve the metatarsal head. Moreover, it's really important that the base of the heel must be wider than the heel placement in order to enhance stability, because as we can see in the previous video, the patient walk out of balance. Our idea of prevention, we at Optima Molliter, is YDA. YDA is a shoe that combines the charm of Italian style with a specific technical features. As an innovative rocker design that combines rocker sole with spring system. Spring system is an insert of fiberglass material that enables propulsion. Moreover, this shoe is equipped with Easy Lace. Easy Lace is a semi-elastic, rapid lace lock system with a buckle clip that allows for continuous adjustment to the foot and the rear portion of the midsole, you can find an insert of a cushioning material named biojelly system that allow to absorb the vertical stress and redistribute it along to the spring system. But unfortunately, sometimes we are not in time to prevent a primary lesion. So we are in acute phase. And as you can see in diabetic foot offloading algorithm, there is two different sections for patient with no ulceration, so patient in prevention or patient in remission, and the patient with ulceration or with a post-surgical wound. And in this case, we are in acute phase. And what we know for a long time is that it's not important what you put on this wound that heals them, but what you take off. So if you appropriately debride this wound and you appropriately take off the pressure, many of these wounds are going to heal if there is a good blood flow. And over the last 3 decades, a lot of evidence was produced in order to identify the best offloading therapy. And especially in the early year of diabetic foot discovery, many of these devices were imported from orthopedic field, especially total contact cast, half shoes, and removable cast walker. The indisputable gold standard therapy in diabetic foot offloading strategies is total contact cast, because total contact cast has shown to relieve the pressure at the site of ulceration from 84 to 92%. And there are a lot of evidence that support its clinical efficiency. But despite the total contact cast, there is the uptake was low because total contact cast is not used. According to this evidence produced by Dr. Wu in 2002, 901 diabetic foot center in United States, only 2% of them use total contact cast as a primary offloading, and 50% of them not use total contact cast at all. And there are reasons. For example, the patient compliance and safety, because the patient falls out of balance walking with total contact cast. The cost, because you have to think that total contact cast, you have to renew total contact cast every week until the lesion is healed. And every application must cost $70 to $100. The time of application is removable. You need almost 30 minutes to apply and 15 minutes to remove it, but this time is for trained cast technicians. And if you want to train a cast technician, is another cost. And moreover, there are a contraindication. For example, in total contact cast, you can't put an infected lesion. But certain type of removable cast walker have shown the same effectiveness of total contact cast, but in the lab, not in randomized controlled trials. So the question is why, if I use this type of device with the patient, is the healing rate lower than using total contact cast? And probably the answer is simple, because if the patient takes the device off, it's not going to give the same result. And with this belief in mind, Armstrong et al. Fought in 2015 to take a removable cast walker and render it irremovables thanks to the application of a single layer of fiberglass band, and call this device instant total contact cast. And the result was amazing because the healing rate is completely comparable to total contact cast. In this short video, you can see the application of the first instant total contact cast, not with fiberglass band, but with elastic band. And it's funny because the security system of this total contact cast is a smiley face. And sure, it is really difficult for everyone to remake the correct smiley face.
And wound care. This is the application of the so-called instant total contact cast. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Dr. Armstrong for sharing this video. In the same period of this evidence, we at Optima Molliter were developing Optima Diab. And Optima Diab is the first walker, is the first prefabricated removable cast walker, rendered removable, that shown the same effectiveness of total contact cast. We have an evidence produced by Professor Piagesi in 2007, and the same result was achieved by a randomized, a multi-center randomized controlled trials in 2012. And this is really a turning point in diabetic foot offloading strategies, because thanks to this evidence, thanks to Optima Diab rendered removable, simply to apply a plastic dye, this evidence allowed to spread the practice of offloading, because Optima Diab rendered removable is easy to apply, is safe to use, and is dramatically cheaper than total contact cast. And the best way to talk about diabetic foot offloading strategies, in my opinion, is referring to international guidelines. And here you can see the penultimate international guidelines, and written in 2015 in the NAG. International guidelines have different recommendations. Every recommendation has a grade of strength and a quality of evidence that support this recommendation. So the strength of recommendation drops alongside with the quality of evidence. And in 2015, we had 3 different recommendations. The first recommendation suggested that there isn't a particular preference to use total contact cast or prefabricated, no removable DI device to heal a plantar foot ulcer. And it's a point of pride for our company that one of the 2 evidences cited to support this recommendation is the evidence produced with Optima Diab rendered removable. The second recommendation suggested that when NII no removable device is contraindicated or not tolerated by the patient, for example, if you have to management an infected lesion, you can use a NII removable cast walker. And the third recommendation suggested that if the NII removable cast walker is contraindicated or not tolerated by the patient, you can consider offloading with a 4-foot offloading shoes. And now we are arrived to nowadays. This is the last international guidelines written in the NAG in 2019. And there are several changes, because now we have a 4 recommendation to heal a neuropathic diabetic foot ulcer. We have a new recommendation for choosing between total contact cast and no removable cast walker. We have a new recommendation for diabetic foot ulcer on plantar aspect of the heel, and 3 different recommendations for neuropathic ulcer complicated by the infection or ischemia. The first recommendation has 2 parts, and the part A suggests that the best offloading therapy to heal neuropathic diabetic foot ulcer is using a no removable NII device. The second part is a question is an answer to a question I believe all of you have in mind now. So which should I pick between total contact cast or no removable or prefabricated no removable NII device? There are equivalents in plantar pressure benefit and adverse event, but there is a slight preference and lower cost for no removable NII walker, prefabricated no removable NII walker. So total contact cast is indicated if there is a skill of available cast technician with a severely deformed foot, or if the patient prefers a total contact cast. And in the comment on the second part of the first recommendation is advised to use contralateral shoes in order to compensate, to minimize these acquired limb length discrepancies, because we have to heal the patient from a diabetic foot ulcer, but we have to protect the knee, we have to protect the hip, we have to protect the back of the patient. The second recommendation suggests to use a knee-high removable cast walker if the no-removable knee-high device is not tolerated by the patient. And the third recommendation, especially for low-income countries where trained cast technician is not available, and the forearm device is not available, is useful to use an ankle-high device. What is really important is that removable cast walker is effectiveness if inside there is an appropriate foot device interface where we have to create the offloading goal. We use kit 3x3 that includes 9 different parts, which are arranged like a puzzles to form a 3-layer inlay. Our kit consists in 3 different shore harnesses that be combined horizontally and vertically. Simply exchanging the modules enables patient to offload the ulcerated area according to prescription. But the most important thing to remember is that the offloading goal mustn't be in the contact with the lesion. We want to avoid the vacuum effect because it's not useful for the healing process. The third recommendation is not properly a recommendation, is more like an advice, because suggests not to use and instruct the patient not to use conventional or standard therapeutic footwear. And in my opinion, it's really important to underline that this type of device, 4-foot offloading shoes, is a completely wrong treatment in diabetic foot offloading management, because cause a lot of disturbance in pelvic and spinal posture, and moreover increase the tibialis anterior muscle activity. And we know that this muscle is already affected by peripheral neuropathy. So 4-foot offloading shoes is an out-of-date treatment in diabetic foot offloading management. And this is the big news about the last international guidelines, because we have a specific indication for the wound complicated by infection or ischemia. If we have a lesion, either mild infection or mild ischemia, we can use a no removable knee-high device. If we have a lesion complicated with both mild infection and mild ischemia, or with either moderate infection or moderate ischemia, we can use a removable knee-high device. What is really important is underline the eye of device. So we have to use an eye device because we have to use the more surfaces possible in order to offload the pressure. If we have a lesion complicated both moderate infection and moderate ischemia, or with either severe infection or severe ischemia, the offloading is not the most important thing to do. The most important thing to do is the surgery. So primarily address the infection, primarily address the ischemia, and we can suggest a walker device in accord to the walking ability of the patient. But in this situation, in my opinion, it's really important to protect the foot, because many of our patients are under a very significant amount of intensive care, and sometimes that involves in a long time in a hospital bed. And this situation put the heel at a great deal of risk. So we have to protect the heel using this type of devices. Heel lift suspension boot is a device made in latex-free polyurethane foam that have pillows inside in order to offload the posterior surface of the calcaneus. And I suggest to use this device especially with patients during dialysis, not exclusively in diabetic foot management, but in dialysis it's very useful to protect the heel. We have the last recommendation, is another big news in last international guidelines, because we have a recommendation to heal a neuropathic plantar heel ulcer. So if you have a lesion of the heel, as you can see in this picture, you can use a knee-high offloading device or other offloading device intervention that reduce the pressure on the heel. Usually, you probably see a device with a cutout of the sole in the rear portion of the foot. We don't believe to remove a part of the sole, but rather we want to promote a more normal gait pattern in order to preserve the vascular efficiency. And we put inside a kit 3x3 in order to create a floating goal. This device is the Optima Heel. Is a device with an opening window on the back in order to offload the rear portion of the calcaneus. This is the, you can see the general features of all of our product. This is Optima Diab, but all of our product have rigid eye stiffener in order to enhance stability, washable and breathable upper in order to promote perspiration, Velcro fasteners, but the most important thing is the rigid insole and the fully rocking sole. Rigid sole, not insole, rigid sole, in order to avoid torsion and flexion, and fully rocking sole to promote more normal gait pattern. This is the big difference between total contact cast and our removable cast walker, because total contact cast works with immobilization and immobilization of the lower leg. Rather, our device works to partial immobilization of the lower leg and fully rocking sole to promote more normal gait pattern. Partial immobilization because we want to get to safeguard the muscle pump of the calf. So this is our belief, and we propose with this belief in all of our product. But Optima Molliter didn't stop there and produce the SBI, the first walker device completely customizable. This device is equipped with a lining made in EVA that has anatomy in mind, because you can find gastrocnemius compartment, Achilles tendon accommodation, malleolar accommodation, and heel placement. This lining is removable, washable, and breathable. And this washable, thermoforming, and moldable, because this lining has a honeycomb structure in order to promote perspiration and transpiration. Moreover, you can heat up the lining with an air dryer in order to manage the swollen foot. And if you have an open wound, and you can use this device in association, for example, with negative pressure therapy, because you can cut out a window on the lining and you can accommodate the negative pressure therapy. Moreover, our device has a sole that is removable and interchangeable. You can equip the device with a fully rocking sole. Fully rocking sole has a rolling foot in the mid-foot zone, and the rocker foot has a 4-foot rolling point proximally located 1 centimeter before the metatarsal head. We have 3 different configurations for SBI. This is SBI Motus, is indicated for wound management, is equipped with fully rocking sole and a kit 3x3 in order to create offloading goal. We have the SBI wheel, is the direct evolution of Optima Heel, because you can find an opening window on the back in order to offload the heel. And we have SBI frame, is equipped with rocker sole and a normal insole, not a kit 3x3, because it's indicated in trauma and, for example, in transition patient after being in a cast to ultimately getting back into their shoes. And as I said before, this device is completely customizable. So you can buy the single element of the device without purchasing the entire of device. And is lightweight, is deeply appreciated by the patient. What is clear is that more proximal the lesion is more difficult the healing process and more difficult the offloading. So when we have to choose the correct device, we have to consider the etiopathogenesis and development of the lesion, location of the lesion, and the general condition of the patient. So diabetic foot offloading algorithm is an awesome instrument for every healthcare professional moving through diabetic foot offloading strategies for every different lesion. Sometimes we are facing off to a Charcot foot. Charcot foot is the worst complication in diabetic foot management because it's a consequence to diabetic neuropathy that can be result in an acute localized inflammatory condition that may lead to a very patterns and bone destruction, dislocation, subluxation, and foot deformities. The hallmark foot deformity is the mid-foot collapse in Charcot foot, and this deformity is named rocker bottom foot. In Charcot foot, we identify 3 different pathways. Acute phase is, in acute phase, it's really important to understand that simply the weight of the patient can distract the architecture of the foot. So in this situation, we are not talking about offloading, but off bearing. So total contact cast to the patient, and the patient can move exclusively with a wheelchair. We have a conversion to chronic phase, where the patient can walk with a minimum of a few steps with a knee-high removable cast walker, and the remission, the patient have to use a custom-made shoes. But the most important messages for me about Charcot foot is that we have to be clear in Charcot foot, we don't talking about offloading, we are talking about off-bearing in acute phase of Charcot foot. Sometimes we are facing off to an amputation. We have a different level of amputation. We have amputation of the tooth, transmetatarsal amputation. This amputation is easy to manage, but sometimes we are facing off to least frank amputation or short part amputation. And usually this patient waiting for custom-made partial foot prosthesis. The goal of partial foot prosthesis is protect the portion of the healthy foot, restore as much as possible the normal development of step, and redistribute the pressure. Now we have a new product, Body Armor Pro Term, that allow to protect the foot in the most comprehensive way possible. This device is very useful because it's the unique prefabricated partial foot prosthesis in order to manage short part amputation or least frank amputation. Thanks to this product, you can put the patient immediately into rehabilitation, into occupational therapy, into living their life, especially in patients who need to get out of bed soon. So there is also an evidence to support the effectiveness of this device. This is one of my application of Body Armor Pro Term in the hospital after short part amputation. And about the evidence, there are 3 findings. Three findings that I found really, really interesting. There is no difference in healing rate, but there is a meaningful difference about restoration rate and a meaningful difference in average of healing time. And especially the difference about the healing time, it's really important, because if the healing time is lower always the likelihood for developing an infection. So I think, according to Armstrong, this product is something, a game changer for these very complex salvage procedures, often in patients who need to get out of bed soon, because if they don't get out of bed soon, they are not going to get out of bed later. Finally, understood that the big issue in diabetic foot offloading strategies is the patient compliance. And the solution has been proposed and it's currently employed is force compliance. In fact, probably the most important attribute of total contact cast is its ability to force compliance, because the patient have no choice other than to adhere to prescription. But we at Optima Molliter, we are not a big fan of force compliance. We have a great and ambitious goal. We want to invest to the most important resource, the people who are our patient. So not force compliance, but rather induce compliance. And with this idea in mind, Optima Molliter, in partnership with Sensoria, has developed SBI Motus Smart. Not only the first walker device completely customizable, but moreover, the first device smart. Yes, smart because this device is equipped with gyroscope and accelerometer in order to track the patient usage patterns. Thanks to this device, caregivers and clinicians will have access to a multitude of patient data in order to track the patient compliance and intervene before the amputation become unavoidable, because this device has a Bluetooth connection that communicates with the patient on his cellular phone or his smartwatch with a text messages, and in the same time communicate with a web dashboard where clinician and caregivers can track the compliance. It's a point of pride for we at Optima Molliter that this device was honored as the most innovative wearable technology in CES 2019 in Las Vegas. So when all of our treatment has gone well, we can think that our patients are healed, but they are not healed. They are in remission. I really like this term because it gives us an idea about how dangerous diabetic foot is, because according to this evidence, you have to think that a year, 50% of our patients are going to develop another wound. 2/3 at 3 years, 3/4 at 5 years, and between 80 to 100% in 10 years. So our goal shouldn't be to prevent recurrence, even though, yes, it's a laudable goal, but our goal should be to prevent severe recurrence and to make this recurrence as minor as possible. With this idea in mind, to achieve this result, is useful to use a more rigid shoes with more rigid insole and a shoe with extra depth volume in order to contain foot deformities and contain foot orthotic. It's really important to extend the use of therapeutic shoes at home because particularly at home, this patient exhibit the largest walking activity. And in remission, it's really important to use a custom-made foot orthotic. But custom-made, when I talking about foot orthotic, I want to underline that custom-made means not exclusively on shape of the foot, but we must also consider the function of the foot. So we have to consider if there is a peak plantar pressure and where is the peak plantar pressure, because the goal of foot orthotic is reduce the peak of plantar pressure. So it's really difficult to make the best offloading therapy if I don't know where is the peak plantar pressure. So also in the last guideline, it's suggested to encourage services to invest in regular pressure measurement. And moreover, it's really important to test our foot orthotic, especially with using an in-shoe system, because we have to test if the peak plantar pressure is effectively reduced. Sometimes in remission, we have to use a partial foot prosthesis. Here you can see a different partial foot prosthesis. From the left, you can see a partial foot prosthesis for show part amputation. In the center, a partial foot prosthesis for transmetatarsal amputation. And in the right side, partial foot prosthesis for SIME amputation. Fortunately, this type of amputation is becoming less frequent to see because, as you can see in this video, this is not a walking ability, because the patient can walk exclusively with the help of caregivers, in this case with the help of for the doctor. Probably if the patient was undergo to a below knee amputation, the patient can walk earlier and better. In remission, an useful instrument is the custom-made footwear. Custom-made footwear, we have different evidence that support this instrument. What we know is clear that the adherence to wearing custom-made custom-made shoes is lower. But as an orthotist, it's interesting to know what type of patient show the highest level of adherence. The patient with lower body mass index. So probably all our patients are not lazy, but probably they can wear his custom-made shoes. The more severe foot deformity. So we have to check our educational problem, because our educational program, because probably the patient underestimates his risk classes. And as an orthotist, the last findings were really important, because the patient who showed the highest adherence to wear their custom-made shoes is the patient, are the patient with more appealing footwear. So it's really important to involve the patient in the making process, because custom-made shoes is an effective product to offload the diabetic foot patient in remission. So we end up back to our start point. Usually, this is my last slide, and usually the last slide is the take-home message. And my take-home message is really simple. This is my take-home message. Use diabetic foot offloading algorithm in your daily practice, because it's an awesome instrument. I think it's our silver bullet for every pathways in diabetic foot management, because it doesn't matter which type of lesion you find the patient have, nor which phase you find them in. You can successfully find the best solution within the algorithm, and by following it, you can lead them to remission and make remission as stable as possible. Thank you very much. That's it for me. And if you want to see any of the research papers that I spoke about, could you send me an email and I'll send you the evidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriele. Thank you very much.
Before you go, just there's some questions in the Q&A panel. Gabriele, if you can help us answering, and I've seen a couple of questions that go into the chat section.
Okay, no problem.
There's one question from Bronwyn Cooper.
Okay.
I'll let you read and answer it.
Yes, you can have surely a copy of algorithm. I think Juliana sent a PDF to Irish, and Irish share the diabetic foot offloading algorithm to all of you. We have sandals.
Yes, of course.
Yes, we have a sandals for the warmer climate. So we have different sandals. As you can see, all of our product in acute phase are quite sandals. In remission phase, you can use this type of sandals. Okay, this is high sandals for the management for manage the patient probably have lost some toes, but we have also a low sandals. Solution is due to increase in conditions. I don't know. Okay, I can see your name because I can see an anonymous attendee. but I think your consideration is really clear, and I completely agree. Do you these attendees suggest that, do you think the lower rate of reulceration is due to increased ambulation simulating muscle activity and therefore blood flow, maybe increased proprioception, etc.? Yes, this is my belief, but I'm available to you, to all of you, to produce an evidence that support this belief, because the big difference to total contact cast and our device is the capacity to promote more normal gait pattern, because there isn't a study that shown how many steps usually the patient can do with a removable cast walker and how many steps the patient can do with total contact cast. But probably patient with total contact cast don't walk, because walk with total contact cast is unsafe, is out of balance, the patient's self out of balance. Rather, with Optima Diab or Optima SBI, you can promote a more normal gait pattern.
Yep. Any more questions before we close the session? I would like to thank you again to Optima team, Juliana and Dr. Montini, for your presentation. It's very valuable, and I hope our audience in Australia and in Europe, they had enjoyed it and they found it valuable. Thank you again. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to contact us and we'll be happy to work with you. Good evening and have a good day.
Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.